Hello and welcome to the Bonsai Wire podcast. I'm Michael Hagedorn, and I'm going to be talking today with Patch Clark, who is my new apprentice, or newish apprentice. We're going to be talking about Patch's first year in the garden, the defeats, the victories, all the dirt. I hope you enjoy it. When you came in September of 2024, Carmen was still here.
Yeah.
Her family had already moved to Michigan, where she was going to be returning to her curatorship at the Matai Bonsai collection there at the Botanical Gardens. My memory has it that she had a list of things that she had put together for the next apprentice, and she had been working on it before I think that you were here. Is that correct?
Yes, thankfully with her background, she's very diligent at note-keeping and passing along valuable information like who some of our vendors are, work timing. She was really gracious about answering questions I might have been too embarrassed to ask you.
She also gave you a 1-year grace period, right, in terms of whose fault it was? How did that go?
She told me that a new apprentice could blame any mistakes on the former apprentice for the first year.
That was a new one. I think Carmen was the first one to enact that policy. Yeah.
Carmen's been using too much wire for the last year.
Oh, dear.
Sorry, Carmen.
Well, I think, after she left, the next time we saw her was at the expo, the Pacific Bonsai Expo, down in Oakland, which involved a lot of prep work for us. That was your first adventure, I believe, with a high-end bonsai show?
Yeah, I had never even attended a high-end bonsai show before that. I've been a backyard practitioner for about 6 years before I started volunteering in your garden. And the expo was my first exposure to a major event. I'd been to the Pacific Bonsai Museum and seen the trees there, but prepping them for the show is kind of another ballgame. I think I spent maybe 30 hours with tweezers in my hand, just plucking little needles.
Well, I remember that. There were the browned needles on the cryptomeria.
Yeah.
Went into the show. That was a good day plus of work. Yeah.
Yeah. Little quarter-inch long.
Right.
Quite a few hours mossing and building large crates for transportation. Yeah,
they were major engineering projects. I was impressed with what you came up with to protect a plant from anything else in the truck. We had a big U-Haul, right, which we were co-renters of with John Eads, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, John Eads of Left Coast Bonsai. He was gracious enough to allow us the space to bring our trees down. So I built big crates to protect them. It was about a 20-foot truck, I think. And then it was packed full of his stock plants for sale and a few other trees that were getting displayed.
Traveling with trees is always an anxious event. No matter how well you pack, it always seems to bring out the worries to some degree or another. But at that time, though, we were also doing a lot of fall work. So that was in the fall of 2024, including winterizing the garden.
Winterizing was a whole new thing for me. I had always just put my trees on the ground at my house before. And we do a little bit of that here, kind of nestling them into the gravel. But most of the stuff that's a little more sensitive gets put in the greenhouses. And with a lot of plants, you got to be pretty mindful about water needs and making sure things aren't hiding and freezing at night. We had a few low temps in the teens. So I was running out there in the middle of the night with the heaters, making sure they were working.
I remember you a bit sleepless, but there were other reasons for that. You still had a few jobs at this time. Isn't that right? You're part of the gig economy?
Yeah, I've been in and out of the gig economy for a long time. A few jobs is fair. Almost the first year. Just this last month, I left my last job, but I've been doing about 70-hour work weeks between the garden and some part-time deliveries and some custodial work I do for one of the state schools in Washington. So I'm keeping very busy and incredibly grateful that you allow the flexibility in the schedule here.
Now I have you completely, though.
Yeah, as of a month ago.
As of a month ago.
Full-time bonsai and family, and it's kind of kind of the dream, kind of intense.
So we should restart the clock now?
Sure,
then?
yeah.
Okay.
5 more years.
5 years from now. Okay, all right. Most of those jobs were at night, though, right?
Correct.
Were they all at night? I can't even remember now.
Yeah, mostly night work. So I would work in the garden with you from sometimes 9 a.m. Sometimes I would start at 11 or noon and get done between 5 or 8 p.m. And then I would go to work until midnight or 2 in the morning and come back.
I remember the 2 a.m. days from the day after. I remember that, yeah.
This apprenticeship's the first time I've had a full 24-hour on the clock day. I'm counting it as a successful new accomplishment under my belt. We did a 16-hour trip north to collect some trees, and then I picked up an 8-hour cleaning shift at the school right after that.
Oh, that's right. You went up with Evan from the Portland Japanese Garden. That was a long trip. That was quite a day. Is that the one you're thinking of?
Yeah.
We were picking up trees from Aaron Packard, from the Pacific Bonsai Museum, and from David DeGroat, and from Ken Wassam, and then also from Dan Robinson. So we had 4 stops that day, or you did. I wasn't along on that trip. And then you came back and worked.
Yeah, I was really grateful.
Oh, to be young, Patch. Oh, my word.
Very grateful to Evan from the Japanese Garden. He's incredibly helpful in coordinating and getting all the trees loaded up in a timely manner.
That was the trip with Dave's boxwood, right? Dave DeGroat's boxwood?
No, this has been
that was a while ago.
Yeah.
God, that was the first trip.
First trip.
All right. But Dave's boxwood then was... You were part of that trip, though, right?
That trip was...
That was last year.
Yeah, another big journey. So
that was the return.
For our listeners who don't know, Michael curates the seasonal displays for the Portland Japanese Garden, and our timing and overlap has been interesting this year. So I've done a little bit of the transportation of the trees, and that boxwood was quite a big tree.
Was that 300 pounds or
Probably
something?
about 300 pounds, yeah.
It's like a 10-person tree or a 1-patch tree. Is that right?
No, I couldn't do it alone. I actually had a lot of trouble finding help for that one. And
you had a ramp made, didn't you?
I built a custom ramp, and my family ended up tagging along. I have an incredibly supportive and strong wife who helped return the tree, and I remember the look on Dave's face when we showed up. He said, "You brought your wife and kid? This is a 4-person tree." But we got it into place safely, and nobody was injured. No trees were harmed.
No trees or family members, or even Dave. I think he's still doing all right. Yeah, that was a fantastic tree for the Portland Japanese Garden that year. It's this big thing. One of the problems we have, if you could say it's a problem, but it's this huge space where the bonsai display area is at the Portland Japanese Garden, and small trees just get swallowed up. So whenever there's an option to get a really nice large tree, I jump at it, and Dave offered this boxwood for the season of display last year. So then later that year, I guess it was January, I went to Africa. I usually take a vacation, usually in the winters when I can get away, and it tends to be a 2-week adventure. I have some friends who live in Dakar, so I wanted to visit them, and I wanted to do a little bit of birding. And so I left my new apprentice. Like, goodbye, have fun. How did that go?
It was good. I think my only note in our show notes here was nervous. It was kind of a big deal. I came from having trees that were maybe 20 years old to caring for plants that are a few hundred years old, and feeling a little alone while you were out of town, and the time difference made it difficult to communicate. So I think I probably bothered Carmen quite a bit while you were gone.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. Yeah, the time change would have been difficult for immediate needs, for sure.
I think that's when I thought that our water line burst under the house. I had a little panic because I heard some spraying, and
What was that? What did that end up being?
There was a leak, so I shut off the water to the house and crawled under there, and
oh gosh,
and ended up cutting one of the water lines and capping it, and before all this, I had to call Carmen. It was like, where's the key to shut off the water? Running around frantically trying to get the water shut off.
Oh, no.
We got it all repaired, so we're okay. Luckily, I have a little bit of experience with some home repair and maintenance stuff, background in residential contracting, so it wasn't unfamiliar territory, but it is a very small crawl space.
Even for me. So yeah, I'm amazed you can grease yourself up and slip through there. That's a tight one. And then we had the month later we had some snow.
Yeah, just a little this year. It's been pretty mild seasonally for us.
It has. Even the summers have been, which is just bizarre. Usually we dip into the hundreds and for a week or so in the summer, at least a few days, and then in the winters, usually we can get down to 20 once or something like that. Usually a brief adventure down that far, but 25 is maybe our average low, and that occasionally is attended by a bit of snow. But you're right, we really haven't had much. Certainly in your first year. Yeah, it was quite a few years ago that we had 14 inches once, and it imploded a whole bunch of greenhouses throughout the valley. This is a big nursery growing area, and it just made a total mess of people's nurseries. But we did have that month, we had 2 seasonals, and those can always get kind of adventuresome, getting people here if there's a snowfall. We usually start these seasonals right at the time that any possibility of snow ends, and only a couple times we've been caught a little bit foxed out. But we did quite a few big repots, didn't we?
We had a number of really cool projects in this round of seasonals. I was a little nervous because you stepped back and said, go ahead and take the lead on repotting the cryptomeria. And
I had watched you repot a bunch of things, and I was circling on the periphery.
It was, I think it took 4 of us the better part of a day to get that tree repotted, just being as mindful and as cautious as possible with such a high-value pot.
Yeah, that's a pot that's an antique from China, a shape and color of which I've never seen before. Very unusual, probably about a 300-year-old pot, something like that.
There's some interesting things I had never encountered, too. Just 3-inch drain holes were new to me.
Yeah, which you do find on really old pots. And then 100, 200 years later, the pots in China had little, like, 1/2-inch to 1/4-inch holes.
Oh, geez.
Almost unusable. A lot of the middle crossing pots are, you almost want to re-drill them. But then we had a couple other fun adventures. We had some Yamadori repotting. One of them was that previously styled Ponderosa that we got in a pot. That was a fun adventure, right? There was a lot of propping involved.
That was a lot of propping. We did a half bare root on that one, and it seemed to just not skip a beat. The tree did really well.
Yeah, pines are remarkably tough plants for sure. Junipers are too. We did do some of that. We did a lot of deciduous trees, even air layers. We had 1 or 2 air layers, right? Did we? Oh, there was a styrax.
Yeah, that styrax air layer is gorgeous. That's going to be a really fun tree. Yeah, and we put together a couple of fun forests. We did the vine maple and the aspen forest.
Oh, the aspen, right? I think that's the first aspen that's ever been in the yard.
Yeah.
So we're going to hang on to that one a little while. I'm very curious about adventuring with it a little bit. And then we have, so those were, a lot of that work was done in the seasonal programs that we have. Those are the 3-day intensives that we do. But then we also have semi-privates for locals or anybody within driving distance. We have somebody coming in from Spokane later this month. And then we also have a fella coming over the mountains from Bend. People bring some fun projects for those because that's sort of the difference between the 2 programs that we have here, that the seasonals are people who are working on trees. They don't bring their own, but they work on the trees here that I've developed at a level of which I hope would be helpful to students as my teachers' trees were helpful to me to see where you're going. But then the semi-privates are where people bring their own trees. And we had some fun adventures there. We had, I think we even did a post about the magnets that Brock brought.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I'd never worked with magnets in bonsai before, coming to Crataegus and working with you guys here. But yeah, Brock, our friend from the Pacific Bonsai Museum, brought down an incredible project. He had this cool, angular, really heavy piece of steel that kind of been welded together. And
he found it somewhere.
He found it, yeah. And he told me he brought it to you because you're the person who does the fun the fun mountings and the sort of avant-garde display. It ended up
and yet he had this all thought out. I mean, I think we maybe helped him position it a bit, but I really kind of liked it. Avant-garde is a good word for that. I just gave a Zoom presentation on conceptual bonsai, which I think is maybe under the umbrella of avant-garde. Avant-garde maybe has more than that. I'm actually interested to have a conversation about that with other professionals. I'm curious where they see that. But when we look at conceptual art and what the definition in that world is for conceptual work, it's that the idea is sort of dominated over the piece. That the piece is not as important as the idea, which I'm not entirely sure we've quite reached that level with bonsai yet. But a few people have definitely done things that I consider to be conceptual art, like David Crust, who has that absolutely famous and brilliant Hoover larch that showed up at the Artisans' Cup. I remember when I was on the jury, Ryan invited me to be on the jury, and we had a lot of fun with that. And a lot of the selections we found, pretty traditional, and we were kind of on the same page about much of it. And then David's Hoover popped up, and we both kind of looked at each one and laughed and said, "We got to have that one in there."
I really like that tree.
I mean, not only do you need a tree that's just a little bit, unusual, but that was a really interesting tree that I thought was just hilarious. It almost looks like a sidecar. It's like the larch is like on this little motorcycle with a 1930s sidecar.
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit. It's a great example of using a found object. What was the term? Yeah. You said there's a term for this practice of using a found object in display.
I don't even know what that is. Well, I'm sorry. Did I say something?
No, that's okay.
Did I say something interesting someday?
Yeah,
I'm afraid I am not pulling it out right now. Maybe it'll come back to us. Well, let's move on. So this is after repotting, and then things slow down a little bit, or well, they used to. Gosh, these days our Aprils have been fairly busy. There's a lot of chochobai flowers that need to be plucked, and some of the pinching begins. Our yard is filled out quite a bit from where it was many years ago. So you've got a busier adventure than...
Yeah, there was a lot of pinching to do this year. I had never pinched at this scale, obviously, with my own collection, and it kind of occurred to me what I had signed up for while I was doing it. It's like, wow, there's a lot of trees here.
So was it the spruce that made that sink in, or was it the Japanese maples? And both of them you do some pinching on.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I think it was the spruce. The quantity of shoots on the spruce was a little overwhelming.
Yeah, well, I mean, we probably, we have a half a dozen trees or less in terms of the ones that really need a lot of pinching. The azos need a lot because they're a bud heavy tree, whereas the native, like an Engelmann, just doesn't have as many shoots, so they're quicker to do. But you have to kind of keep up on them. Every few days you go back to the same tree, so that it's about all you do. During a couple 3 weeks there in the early May, and then the Japanese maples is, if you are pinching, you're using a tweezer, and that's a little bit different. Yeah.
A little slower for me with the tweezer, still trying to work on that professional speed and dexterity with the Japanese maples, but still do it right. It seemed like I could work through the spruces a little quicker, but like you said, constant, every day, checking the same trees, taking off 100 more shoots, and then rechecking them. And
then in April, we put up the display at the Portland Japanese Garden, and so you went back up. Oh, that's when you went up with Evan.
Yeah, that was the long trip with Evan.
That was a long one.
That's a cool display. We have another one of Dave's trees. It's spectacular.
Right. Yeah. That there's several. This one was a blog post. It's a black pine raft, which I decandled in, I think that was in first week of June, I think. So it might be a slightly different calendar than that tree is familiar with, given that it's from the Seattle area. There's quite a bit of difference in the climate there. I was talking with Dave Grote about this, that it feels like there's about 1 or 2 weeks more of sun and heat in the Portland area than the Seattle area. Portland is a little further inland. It's about 70 miles from the coast, whereas Seattle is right on it. So you get more of that maritime effect there. So it's a little cooler longer. And then also in the fall in the Portland area, we think there's more heat and this is sort of a longer growing season, another 1 or 2 weeks. So I think Portland might add a month, which is possibly, it's at the north end of the Willamette Valley, and it's one of the reasons, not the only one, but it's one of the reasons why this has been chosen as kind of a nursery capital. There's another one in northern Italy, I believe, where you have the 45th parallel maritime. There's just something about that particular zone where plants grow really well.
Well, this brings up an interesting kind of question or maybe conversation for me with the position you're in, curating trees from multiple gardens. Our other big tree on display this year is a huge Japanese black pine.
Right.
That came from Alandon Gardens.
Yeah, Dan's tree.
And the timing was a little different between him and Dave. You said June 1st for Dave's tree?
I think it was, yeah. I was trying to follow what Dan prefers to do. I don't know if it has so much to do with climate or just what he wants to achieve in terms of a needle length, but he's into early July. So I cut it in early July. I was a little nervous, but the tree has got shoots coming out, and we'll see how it does by the end of the year.
Yeah,
I hope we have a little bit of heat.
It's a really cool tree. It's a really cool tree, and Dan's had it for a long time, so he's doing something, the way he likes it, and it's right for that plant.
Yeah. It's definitely a different feel for sure. Yeah. So then, we're working our way through the year here, Patch's first year. So then we hit May, and the possibility, although it didn't actually happen this year, did it? Because we've had this cool year of heat, a lot of heat. So shade cloth usually goes up in April just to kind of be ahead of the ball, because often it can come pretty quick. And we have 2 areas that we do with shade cloth, and at least one of them helps to have an extra set of hands. Yeah. Did you have any this year? I can't remember if we had a volunteer that day.
No, I wasn't able to get a volunteer that day.
Oh, you did both of these by yourself?
I did both of these.
Remember that.
Well, I had heard that John had done it, so I knew there was a way. The hard thing I've learned is trying to copy John.
No, it's impossible.
He is such an incredible worker, and he has so many skills. I think it took me a full day almost to get one of them up.
Well, he grew up on a farm, so yeah. You're gonna have a lot of wild skills. Well, I don't know. You've got a lot of impressive hand skills yourself in building those boxes for the Pacific Expo, and some of the other adventures we've had here in the yard has reduced my anxiety about me doing it, which is never a good idea. I'm still surprised I was even allowed to work on my own tiny house. When we were building that, I mean, we had a lot of volunteers who were very skilled, and then a lot of volunteers who were much like me, who had, probably the majority of us had no idea what we were doing. So we had hired a handyman to kind of guide us. He was like a jovial Errol Flynn. He was a funny guy. He would, we would be putting up the doors, or maybe especially the big picture window, which was huge. I think we had 4 people there that day, and he would. He kind of turned to us and said, "Oh my God, what are we gonna do?" And then he would just sort of grin. He would just kind of pop that little anxiety bubble, and we didn't break the window. We did just fine.
You've done that to me here. I cut a shoot wrong, and I say, "Oh no, what did I do?" You said, "The whole tree's gonna die."
Well, it hasn't happened yet.
It helps to cut the tension sometimes. There's a lot of pressure. It feels like occasionally I can get a little nervous, even though they are just small plants. They're not just small plants.
And then when I'm on the road, you're cutting these shoots by yourself. So in May, I went on a trip to Australia to their national convention. And that was a long trip. That was a 2-weeker in the middle of the growing season. So that was a little more challenging, I think, than the one in January when things are a bit quiet. And
yeah, the Australia trip was much more hands-on in the garden.
Yeah,
I have a great personal story that's just terrible, but I have to admit it.
Do I know it?
You know it, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's one of these lessons you learn as an apprentice, but you don't know you're learning it for about a month until your teacher tells you, "Hey, I'm home from Australia, and now I can't show a single pine for a year because you watered too much." That's kind of a blow that hits pretty hard. It's one of those lessons that hopefully I'll only ever learn once. And it's amazing how much a needle can grow in such a short period of time during that extension.
Yeah. Yeah, even if you're not fertilizing, which, for a single flush pine, we tend to minimize in the spring, either overwatering or sometimes just springs with a lot of rainfall can make your needle grow. Pines are opportunists. They will take whatever you throw at them and use them to build tissue, and water is one of them, right? So you can definitely build a bigger needle if you're encouraging the plant with more water, or I shouldn't lay it on you because I wasn't here. It might have been a lot of rain.
There was a few factors.
That's possible.
Yeah, it was a little rainy. I think I was nervous and did overwater. Watering is truly the hardest thing.
Well, especially with this group of plants that you're talking about. The pines are probably the trickiest. I mean, the deciduous trees, we water them when they're even wet still. But if you do that with certain conifers, that's a little bit of a different story. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had another one we wouldn't normally want to admit on air, but we had a little bit of spider mite this year, so we were blasting extra moisture around.
That's right. Until we decided on a chemical to use on it. We've kind of infrequently had spider mite issues here. I had a lot of that when I lived in Arizona, especially my friends who lived in the cities where I think hedgerows and big trees were kind of carriers or vectors of spider mites, and so you just always had them, and you had to spray prophylactically. So municipal areas can be problems, I think. If you're living out in the country and there aren't mites around you in the landscape, you're probably going to have less of an influence or incidence of mites unless you bring them in yourself. But yeah, we did have a bit of a problem with mice. That's right. I think we're on top of it. Next year, we're going to be absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, it's looking much better now. I haven't seen any in a while, knock on wood.
Yeah, right. So then we're into June, and you were leaving your last job there?
Yeah, let's see. In June, I left my delivery job in the evenings. I stopped doing that. But right after I left that job, one of my coworkers at the state blind school had a major medical event in their life and needed a month of graveyard coverage. So I picked up about a month of shifts there. And we were starting to get into a little bit more warm weather here. So
you had it coming from both ends.
Yeah, staying awake all day with the trees and then all night for work.
Wow. Nice to be
sustainability is on the way. We're traveling that direction.
Very good. Yeah. So in early June, we're wrapping up in this area. We're wrapping up our decandling of Japanese black pines, fairly far north. So we cut a little bit earlier than some. I know some in the Midwest where they get a lot of heat and humidity, which this plant loves, can cut a fair bit later. If you're in the St. Louis area, for instance. But here we're wrapping up kind of early June, which might surprise some.
Yeah, there was a lot of. It feels like a lot to me because I'm new to the garden, but it's probably very normal for you, the amount of pine work that gets done around here.
Yeah. And then we had some seasonals at the same time when we were working through a number of these pines with them as well.
Yeah, that was interesting. Every seasonal group is different. And
different energy, and we had some great sessions this year. It was an awful lot of fun.
I don't think I've ever attended one that wasn't fun. They're all it's always a blast. Every group's unique.
We've years ago I started combining returnees with new students, and I'm going to stick with that because I think it adds a lot of continuity. And I have people working on different trees, but it's something that I've only recently started, and I think it actually, much like the apprentice crossover, it can kind of give people a bit of confidence, maybe. Yeah,
I think so. Having a little bit of overlap, someone who's more comfortable in the space to kind of kick off conversation, and the newbies can follow in suit really quickly, and everyone becomes a big happy family within the first few hours.
Yeah, it's worked out that way. It's been a lot of fun. 4 people is a pretty good group. I used to do 6, which felt like herding cats, and 4 for some reason is a lot less catty. With too large a group, I think your introverts stay quiet, and with too small a group, there's not quite enough interaction. So like 3 to 4 seems about right. I do know a few professionals who do 5, and I think that can be certainly manageable. But 4 is my preference. So then, was it in July that you then stopped all of your jobs? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm still technically on call as working for the school, which I really enjoy.
Blind school?
Yeah, I
the
do.
Blind school.
I do some custodial work for the State Blind School in Washington.
That is in Vancouver, just over the river.
I never thought I would actually enjoy custodial, but it's been really nice. You go in, you clean, you leave, you save your creativity for your own endeavors.
Yeah.
And they're really a great agency to work for. The students are all super cool. It's the only school I've ever been in that felt like really hands-on education. The art room at the blind school is like an art room from the 80s. You go in and there's paper mache and there's paint and there's markers everywhere. There's no sterile art room, It's really cool. It's what I like to see happening with education.
A lot of creativity happens in the messy side yards.
Yeah. But done with that for now. It's been full-time bonsai as of this month. I've been doing full-time hours in the garden, of course, for the last year, but now I'm sleeping at night, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, your eyes are whirling less, so now I understand why.
The bags are going away slowly.
So then Alicia is got some new hours, right?
Yeah, we were able to adjust our schedules. So she's kind of full-time. I would call it a swing shift. We split our parenting very evenly. We're both with our child. It's either one of us or the other who's with him. We both work a lot, and she's a great support system. This is such an odd endeavor to pursue bonsai. I'm really grateful to have a supportive partner like Alicia.
Well, you got to know each other quite well. Let's see, when you were doing shadow boxes, right? Why don't you tell us that story? You spent a year on the road with Alicia.
Yeah,
at trade shows.
We're high school sweethearts. We got married right out of high school, and we just had our 10-year anniversary.
Wow.
This year, and right out of high school, I used to do trade shows for a living where I would sell shadow boxes with skeletons of leaves that had been preserved. I used to work with another Michael in a tree-related art. This is my second apprenticeship.
Yeah, wow. With a Michael with a tree-related art. We apologize.
It's the universe working for you, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of odd, but yeah, we used to preserve leaves while they were fresh, and the skeletal structure would stay flexible. He figured out a process to keep them sturdy. Some of his pieces were 20 plus years old, and I did everything for him with regards to the creation of the process. I was an apprentice, so I was making shadow boxes, cutting glass and mats, processing plants, and traveling to sell the work at festivals and trade shows. So after we got married, Alicia and I moved into our Sprinter van, half of our Sprinter van. So we lived in 42 square feet.
Most people find one Sprinter van to be not enough, but you were in half a Sprinter van.
We lived in half of a Sprinter. We lived in about 42 square feet where our mattress was, and then our show equipment loaded into the back of the van. And we spent a year on the road traveling all over the Northwest every weekend in a different city.
You did like 48 shows a year?
Yeah.
Wasn't that typical for the business?
It was anywhere from 35 to 40, almost weekly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
My partner would do more than that. He would do 45 plus annually.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Very busy, yeah. And for a new marriage, it was quite a test. We were working.
Oh, you were already married?
We had just gotten married.
Oh, you just got married.
So
okay.
We were working
I had that
within
backwards.
about 5 feet of each other and living within about 5 feet of each other for a full year. And we got really good at communication. Some people might have gone the other way. And it was good for us, I think.
Oh, my gosh. It reminds me of that artist. I can't remember. There was a couple, two artists who tethered themselves together with like a 6-foot or an 8-foot rope or something like that, and lived together for a year. And it's
exactly like that.
And that was their art project. Life is art. Well, you are a Duchamp. So recently, we're going back to the yard. It's been a little warmer. We had our first real bump into hot weather here. We were up in the high 90s, which happens here, and we can get 100 plus, but then we bump down usually pretty quick. That's a lot of watering, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of watering. I've been trying to take advantage of the heat to spread out some of our soils that got wet over the winter season and dry them out while simultaneously wetting other soils. So it's
with trees in them.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance here in the garden. Probably, the deciduous trees the last few days were getting 3 or 4 soaks, and the conifers the bigger containers were getting 1, but a lot of them were getting 2 once we get over 90.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we were a little windy too, so that makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. That'll add a watering for sure. Yeah, accent plants generally need several waterings if you're up into that high range. When we get hot, we very often get quite dry. So we're a little jealous areas like Georgia, where humidity, although it can be hard to be around. That's the way it was in Japan. It reminded me of lowland Georgia. It was just unbelievably stifling. And trees would still dry out for sure, but the humidity does give a plant an edge that we don't have here. So it's a lot of watering, a lot of hamizu, which is the leaf watering or needle watering, to refresh a tree and keep everything cool in the yard, the benches, the ground. That's quite a bit. And then we've had a bunch of clients bring trees into the yard, which whenever you're done with all of this other work that you're doing, we get around to those. So there's always something on your bench. We even have an olive up there now, right? We're working through a few olives.
Yeah, there's a couple pretty big olives, which is not a common species in this garden. So it's really fun to get to play with.
Yeah. We have some carving that you're working on with those, and then we're going to wire out some of the shoots and then send them back home.
Yeah. If you haven't carved olive wood before, beware.
What are you finding?
It's so strange. I've done a lot of woodworking, and the grain is hard to follow. Wood comes off in big chunks like bark chips at a park. It doesn't. You can't slide a chisel along it nicely and just get a little cut the way you would expect it to.
There's some funny plants like that. Yew is a funny one. When you first kill a branch, wood is incredibly hard. You can even chip your tools with it. But then when after a year or two, it can start rotting. So there's not a lot of resin that seems to be impregnated into the wood, unlike some pine wood or juniper wood that's fairly long lasting. And it also can kind of chip, it's a bit more like spruce. Yeah. So this we're kind of reaching the end of the first year's notes, but we're thinking we might do this with some frequency to check in with what Patch is doing. We'll have a little apprentice update or something like that.
Yeah, it would be nice to do this again. I think this first year has been a lot of adjustment, trying to learn the pace of the garden and figuring out how to keep up with the work. So maybe now that I'm a little more on track with just the comprehension of the scope, there's a lot of trees here, and they come first. So we'll record when we can, but the work will always come first.
Very good. Very good. Well, thanks, Patch.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
It was fun. We'll do it again. Cheers.
Cheers.
The music on today's podcast was brought to you by the fine folks at Blue Dot Sessions. Check them out at www.sessions.com.